and hopefully we learn through the process, which I know that we already are doing that.
Always.
So, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the feed. This is going to be kind of a strange event in that you are going to watch us cup live. At the end of this, we are going to do some off-air stuff that we'll record and have in the can. And then this episode of us cupping will be kind of cut up in a way that's a little bit more presentable to rewatch later if you want to, or if you're joining us at a later date, you don't get to see all of the fun, boring parts of us grinding and pouring water and all of those kinds of things. You'll just hear us talking more or less. Anything to add, guys?
No, we started with from around the year. And this is our second event. So it's a good year. Great prizes coming up.
Yeah, the top 5 finalists will get a prize of some kind. The 6th and 7th place are going to be honorable mentions for even being able to make the cut for this event. I'll run through what the prizes are and then we'll tell you who got the prizes later. First place is going to get the North 500 gram sample roaster. That is valued at $2,999, and the second place is going to get the Tonino roast color meter that is valued at $340. Third place gets the Barazza Precisio grinder from one of our co-sponsors, Barazza, who's always there sponsoring amazing events like this.
Good people.
Thank you, Barazza. And that is worth $325. The fourth place gets the Palandine Mobile Cupping Kit from Prima Coffee Equipment, which is valued at $274, and that includes a Barazza Encore grinder, a Bonavita 1-liter electric kettle, 2 Rattleware cupping spoons, 6 tumblers, a dozen sample trays, a scale. So basically you'll have the kit and you'll be able to travel around cupping, being judgmental on people's coffee all over the world.
The Paladin Cupping Kit.
And then 5th place is Bird & Bell's custom-made roaster apron, which is valued at $85, and which is the thing that we're sporting here today. Bird & Bell does beautiful work. If you haven't had an opportunity to look at the work that they're doing over there, please go to their website and check that out. They make beautiful felt holders for your iPads, and they make custom computer or bags, and it's just beautiful stuff.
B-Y-R-D, Bird.
That's right. And Bell is B-E-L-L-E. Ampersand in the middle. All right. Without further ado, gentlemen, I think we should grab some coffee and start to grind in.
Grind on.
All right. Just go on mine. Follow me.
Are you killing the mics at all?
You might want to switch yours out.
Number 7.
You okay?
So are we still broadcasting?
Oh yeah, we're broadcasting. I'm gonna go up there and dance.
So a purge, you can just lift this, put the purge through.
Okay.
And then we'll have an empty cup so you can pour through and just keep it flowing. And then I like to knock out at the end because it's usually just chaff in this, and I don't like getting the chaff in the cups as much. All right.
Good call.
Want to do a mic check, Nick?
Dave, where's the coffee that you
I got
have?
number 2, Joe.
Okay. Sounds strong.
Sounds better? Okay.
What do I got on me?
My fist.
You are a gentleman.
Relax, bud, relax.
Thank you.
Whoops.
Yep.
And while you're watching us prepare for cupping, if you have any questions about the process, about what we're weighing, what we're doing, what we're about to do, make sure to use the live chat.
So our calibration is going to be off the air, right? Later, after this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk about it on the air. What's that? Very beginning stage.
We're still live.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been talking.
All right. Nick always has words of wisdom. Which order would you like to roll, Joe? Left
We'll
to
go in
right?
this, yeah, the order of pouring.
Thank you.
And here you are, Micah.
Thank you.
Certainly. So let me show you all the cupping sheet that we're going to use. I don't know if you can see that at home. Hopefully you can. I'll give the camera a moment to adjust here. But basically, these are the criteria that we're looking for in the coffee. Dry fragrance and wet aroma. Dry fragrance is what we're going to evaluate right away. Dry fragrance is going to be what we smell in the dry grounds. Wet aroma is what we smell when we break the cups. Flavor, aftertaste, acidity, body, sweetness, those are all going to be calibrated, or they're all going to be entered in as we go through the cupping from start to finish. And then at the end, we'll add in our cupping score, or cupper's score, which is basically what we kind of feel like a gut check against all of the other scores that we've had. Like for instance, if we score really high on acidity, really low on sweetness, well, this might be a 9, this might be a 7, but we really liked the fact that it was real bright and juicy, or we didn't like that, and so maybe this would be a 7, or maybe this would be a 9. So this is kind of a little bit more toward an average of how these work out and our own personal holistic feeling about that coffee.
Holistic
So differ a little bit. As we go through, if there are 7s all the way across this scoring sheet, then that would calculate to being a 79 point coffee. If these are all 8s, then we're at an 86, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's basically the score sheet. These being all one coffee makes a very interesting exercise, in that what the difference will be is strictly due to roast and or freshness of the coffee. Perhaps there could be variance in how somebody has sorted their coffee before roasting or after roasting, if they've groomed the roast or have not groomed the roast, if they have sorted for screen size. There are various other tricks that you can incorporate to make your coffee stand out and be different. Whether or not that difference is good or bad is going to be up to us to decide, I guess. So that's how we'll score. We will calibrate after this cupping is over, so there may be a little bit of dead time between the time that we each finish up and then talk about these scores in a more public setting. If one of us is really low, if we have decided that anything beyond 3 points off is going to be thrown out of the score, thrown out of the average. So if we're all together within 3 points, whether high or low, then all of our scores will be tabulated. If somebody is really low or really high, that will not be part of the overall score. However, during calibration, we will discuss our scores, and so if somebody is out of calibration, they will have the opportunity to change their score a little bit within reason. We're obviously not going to have them move their score exceedingly, or myself move my score exceedingly, but within reason. So we want to give everybody a fair shake.
You never move your scores.
I'm uncalibratable.
There you go.
Okay, so gentlemen, let's go ahead and get the aroma of these if you have not already. And I use the Agtron score area to place my 3-digit code. I have coded all of these, so these are blind. Nobody has any idea of whose coffee is where on the table or which number until after we get done calibrating. I'll go prepare the water. couple of things to comment on. I know that within a Q course, generally you would never lift the cup with the dry grounds in it to give or to achieve the fragrance evaluation. You would bend down to the cup so as not to disturb it. We do usually move the coffee around so that we can get the best aromatic evaluation. However, if you disturb a cup too much, you will lose a lot of that volatile aromatic. So I just want to throw that out there for you cuppers at home and at your businesses. It's up to your company to kind of make that call as to what your protocol is. That is what we have decided to do here. Don't want to teach you any bad habits. We might have a bad habit, but we abide by it with all cups. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start pouring. Don't feel rushed back there, Micah.
I'm good.
Nick, would this be a good time to talk about the entrants, the 7 finalists?
It sure would be.
We had 115 entrants. The fine state of Minnesota had 2 finalists, Cody Larson down in Northfield and Paul Trum up in Alexandria. That state on the west coast called California had 3 finalists. Austin Amento, Harrison Boyd, and Austin Sy. Ellen Folks, our forester from Arden, North Carolina, was a finalist, as well as Lyle Erickson out of Des Moines, Iowa. So those would be the 7 that roasted for our cupping pleasure today.
I'm friends with some of those guys. It's really great to hear you all entered. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Friends and future friends.
And what was good in this is that all of the work was on the 115 entrants. Last year, Serena and I cupped 76 coffees in a week, the same coffee, and at the end I swore that I'd never touch that coffee again. I had just had my gills full of it. This year, in the first round, we sent out 5 blind origins. Entrants had to roast that and determine what country that came from. And we gave the entrants a list of 9 countries. And I stayed away from Sumatrans because it was too obvious. What else did we eliminate? I can't think of anything offhand, but we didn't do any duplicates. People tried to second guess us and thought we'd really had 2 Colombians in there. Knowing Nick, they thought he would try and trick them, but we didn't do it that way. Joe, how long are we going to let these coffees rest before we break them?
About 4 minutes. Thank you, Tony.
We're at 225 right now.
And I'm going to allow you 3 gentlemen to be the breakers. And I will act
Sounds
as
good.
your...
And so a lot of dead time in here. We'll go ahead and Nick will edit that out sometime this weekend. So if you need a really tight version of this session, just like Joe said, tune back in later. So thank you for your patience. Tony, you were Roaster of the Year. Tell us how you got there.
I entered the U.S. Roasters Championship again this year. I did it the previous year and I did not advance in the finals. I believe I may have had the worst coffee on the first table.
You snuck in other words.
I entered again the second year. I wasn't going to, and then kind of decided at the last minute to give it another shot.
Good for you.
Entered a coffee that I've been able to work with every single harvest that producer has done, which is incredibly rare. You don't find new coffee farmers. But it's a relationship I have with a producer in Ecuador named Juan Peña that I developed through Cafe Imports.
In Ecuador.
In Ecuador.
Okay.
Some fun things happening with our relationship down there. He's produced, I think, 7 lots this year. We're taking 3 of them. And We got to do an experimental day where I went down with Piero from Cafe Imports and
Very good.
Boss.
Joe is giving us the signal. It's time for us to break.
I'll go first since I'm right.
Break's over, break starting.
Never used that line before, did you?
I haven't actually. It's the first of many. And the reason that we evaluate the coffee during this time is there's a lot of gas that has been caught up with the ground at the top of that cup. And that gas contains a lot of the aroma that the coffee is holding on to after roast. So instead of that aroma being released out into the atmosphere, we can capture it with our nose and evaluate it. Every chance we get to get a full focused look at the coffee is a good opportunity. So we cuppers like to take the opportunity at the break to smell that coffee. And the general way that this is done for protocol purposes is the cupper would put their spoon into the front of the cup and then push the spoon back to the back of the cup 3 times. And then some evaluation is also done by smelling the spoon perhaps after the evaluation is over. Some people do that, some people don't. It's not necessarily protocol. Notice that they are rinsing their spoons between each cup to ensure that there's no cross-contamination from one cup to another. This ensures that the coffee that they're evaluating is only that coffee in that one cup. You'll also see that there are 3 cups of each individual coffee. So we have 7 coffees on the table, 3 cups of each, and we do that for a few different reasons. The main reason is if there's a variation in that coffee, you can triangulate that variation. So if there is a defect, for instance, if you're evaluating a coffee, that defect will be in only 1 of 3 cups, so then you can isolate that and taste it. If there were only 2 cups, you would not know which one is defective. It could be the better of the 2 cup, maybe the oddball out. In the case of roast evaluation, we want to evaluate for consistency cup to cup. If the roaster was not able to achieve that consistency, then that may be an undesirable characteristic in that coffee. Now we're going to begin skimming these. Could you hand me that spoon over there, sir? Thank you.
I propose an event called Roaster Olympics, and one of them is a speed skimming round. Combination of accuracy, head to head, 2 sides down the table. You have to have a certain percentage clean. If you clear your end, you can start working up your component side to take points away from them.
Maybe I'll just host that rather than compete.
Another round is pallet jack obstacle course.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not giving you a nice pallet either. It's one of those restacked by the freight line.
Are you talking about kicking a pallet jack, like, or the wiggle?
Oh, you have to get through spaces and
Oh, like not
Yeah.
even racing them, but just pushing them?
pushing them.
Oh, goodness.
Obstacle course.
Obstacle course.
This is pallet jack racing. Leave
You want fresh water in these, or are you
Yes,
okay?
we'll freshen those for sure. Yeah, if we can dump those together at that sink, I've got another pitcher hot and ready.
You know, maybe jump on the skis and take it off a curb. You know.
give these a little rinse.
See how many times someone can lift one big coffee. I remember when the first time I bear hugged a coffee and carried it. It was a proud moment.
Yes.
Because I remember what I could not.
Our new guy, Matt. Oh, thank you. He can grab a bag of coffee and just move it where I have to get into it, use my own weight. I'll never be able to do it like that.
Whoop.
Cafe Imports Warehouse. Big shout out to them. Constantly impressing me by moving coffee around like it's full of feathers.
Those guys are
Raimundo and
ridiculously
the others.
strong.
Such nice celebrity guys too.
Yes.
Local soccer champs.
Couple don't do bad on the beer.
Nope.
Cupping either. You're fine.
Right. So now we'll allow this to cool off a little bit. We want to make sure that the coffee is still hot because most people drink coffee when it is hot. So we want to evaluate coffee while it's hot. But we'll really get into the nitty gritty of the evaluation once this is pretty much room temperature or close, somewhere between 100 and 130 degrees. We generally let this rest for about 10 to 15 minutes after we have broken the cups. So usually about 16 to 18 minutes into the overall cupping, so that it gets down to about 160 degrees, which is where it's hot enough to taste it hot, but cool enough to not burn us and scald our tongues to where we can't taste anything after.
I've seen different guys go at it with different temps. When I was at the SCAA event, they were talking about Koreans typically will go right after them when they're still way up there in the 175, 180 degrees.
Wow. Yeah, I've definitely seen cuppers taste it very hot and cuppers wait for it to cool. The most important thing for you to do if you have your own evaluation is that you do the same thing every time. That's very
Consistency.
important. Yep, that's right. And if you have a good strong tongue, go at it hot. That's closer to where your customers will probably be enjoying it.
Mike, over at Bootstrap, how do you folks evaluate a coffee for determining whether or not you're going to grab some?
Yeah, we do a sample roast and then set up a cupping similar to this. Yeah, and we typically wait about 20 minutes in.
Okay, you go on the cooler side.
Yeah.
He's
Tony?
got a very sensitive tongue.
Yeah.
At Spy House, we steep for 4 minutes, then I set about an 11-minute timer. Just easy to get distracted in between, and if I'm doing a side task, it's on that early end, so it gives me time that if I need to wrap up whatever I'm doing in between.
And you've got the volume over there. Do you set aside a day for cupping?
We do quality control 2 days a week, and we'll generally do our purchasing cuppings and stuff right after or right before those cuppings, just because our lab is also our office. There's a lot of things happening in there, so
It's a busy place.
just being respectful of everybody's time. So we try to put them together. Also, it's just kind of flow of the week. We do production roasting 4 days a week. So how do you find time to fit in those random tasks that pop up, like buying tables? So.
Well, that's where we consider ourselves fortunate to be able to get the three of you at the table today. You're all busy folks, and we found a day that would work, built that into our calendar, and then built our calendar out from there. So
Yeah, and that's unfortunately why some of the others were not able to
Yes.
join. Things come up all the time.
We had 3 women invited, and conflicts for all of them. So stay tuned next year, and we'll be a little bit more diverse than you're looking at today.
I personally won't be more diverse, but all right.
Let's do it.
14?
Yeah, we're at about
15?
15 minutes in.
That's fine
so
for
we
me.
can probably start to evaluate these.
Go ahead, Tony.
Much better than awkward silence.
Silence is wonderful.
You're my friend. So during the regular evaluation, usually you will see the cupper take the spoon and slurp the coffee loudly from the spoon. And this is to both spread the coffee all around the palate and to get a lot of those aromatic molecules that were stuck in the liquid, those volatile compounds, up into the olfactory system so that you can give a more full evaluation. It also helps to cool the coffee a bit, aerate the coffee, adding oxygen, because you can't taste something unless there's an oxygen molecule present with it as well. Nothing like slurps loud on the microphone. You're welcome. We will be right back. And we're back. We just had to change out a battery real fast. And you'll see that Tony's coming back to the table. We'll do at least 3 rounds of evaluation. The first round is kind of get to know the coffee, see where the coffee's at in general terms. The second round, we really get into the depths of the flavors, take a lot more stock in the acidity, sweetness, balance, all of those things. And then the third round is really to make sure that our scores thus far are accurate to our first 2 rounds of cupping. It's kind of like a check, going back and checking our work, reevaluating to make sure that we're actually tasting what we thought we were tasting the first 2 rounds, and to see how consistent it is as the coffee cools. Question was, am I using a plastic spoon? And no, I am not. It's a metal spoon.
Just white?
It's just white.
Fancy.
Yep.
Let me see that.
Somebody asked about it on the chat.
Yeah.
I was about to be like, it's plastic. You tapped it. It's not
I thought it was plastic too.
It's a British firm, isn't it?
No, this is a prototype.
Secret secrets.
Oh, hush, hush. If I buy any more coffee from you.
It's for the live listeners only.
Is it made of unicorn horn?
Yes. Someone has a good eye.
Question is, what's a unicorn horn made out of?
Exactly. Ocean plastics.
I wish that everybody at home could taste all of these coffees just to see the variation.
Same bean. That's what I always find phenomenal.
Through advents in technology, if you pour the coffee on the camera, it'll actually come out their monitor. So, yep.
But then it'll get on their keyboard and that's just a mess.
And that's the problem. Yeah.
That's the main problem.
Technology hasn't advanced for at-home monitor coffee dispensing. So, I'm sure it'll be nice.
Sneak in and grab my water.
I'm getting self-conscious cupping with a mic.
What are the flavor neutral metals for cupping spoons?
Good question.
Okay.
I think it's just pure stainless steel, isn't it?
Some would say it's stainless steel, others would say it's silver.
I thought I saw some gold ones.
Yeah, gold. Gold is the only completely pure metal for
That's what Steve's getting us for Christmas gifts for
Gold
2016. Gold cupping spoon.
Fully or plated?
Depends on how much it is.
Or colored?
Yeah. Orange, probably. Not about any specific coffee, but are you guys seeing a large spectrum of flavors here from the same bean?
yes.
Yes.
Very much so.
Can you speak into the microphone for our home listeners?
Sure.
So the question was, are we experiencing a large spectrum of flavors for this being the same coffee? And I would say very much so, yes.
And Joe had suggested this coffee for our finals, and my coffee tasted differently than these. These are a little bit on the light side relative to the way I like to roast.
And these are fairly close to where I like coffee. I like it on the lighter side. Personal preference.
One thing you'll notice most of us doing is when we're stepping back to evaluate, we're stepping away from the table to allow other people access to the coffee. Pretty tightly crammed in here, only having one side of a table for 7 coffees. A lot of times you like to spread it out, or depending how busy your day is, you just cram it in because you can't go to time for another table. It gives room for other people to come alongside you and get more people around the table more quickly.
Better than that. Nick, any questions from the field?
Nope.
We're on our last evaluation pass, just basically checking our work, and then we'll calibrate, and this year's competition will be done.
All over. Except, you know, Dave's gonna sing a song at the end of this and the national anthem.
I'm looking forward to that part.
Got a whole thing.
So am I.
Sometimes coffees improve as they cool, sometimes coffees decline as they cool. This final pass also allows us to evaluate whether the coffee is declining or improving, holding steady.
What's the most amount of coffees each of you have cupped in a day?
Over 100. I don't know.
Probably about 24.
Not that much. Maybe like 15.
80? I think I've judged to 80 in one day.
How do you ward off palate fatigue? Maybe you don't experience that.
Spit, I mean, it's inevitable. Like we were
experienced
doing competition coffees, so we did the competition coffees on the front end of the day, and then there were some experimentals and stuff that we put at the end of the day because they were being evaluated. And then there was a kind of a finals round where we the top copies we re-looked at to kind of give them a fair shake again. Just, you know, something early in the day when you're learning the environment versus later in the day when you're palate fatigue, you kind of balance some of those factors out. Breaks, long lunch breaks.
Joe, how do you?
Meal before and after. Because
Yeah,
the
bananas.
caffeine, that caffeine factor can really get to you. Even if you're spitting, you're still.
Gums are tingling at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you're still getting absorption. You're still swallowing some, even if you spit, and it can get to you.
Yeah, you can't fight off palate fatigue. You can get better and better at cupping, and get, just like you do in a race. The more you run, the better you'll do in a marathon.
Same approach.
But even the best marathon runner in the world is completely exhausted after running a marathon. So it's more of a matter of, if you have that big of a cupping field, it should be an evaluation that narrows the field, so then you can get more and more focused on fewer and fewer coffees.
Oof. Oofda.
It's Minnesotan for getting a little tired. It also goes for a lot of other things. It's a contextual oofda.
This was a good potato. Oofda. There is no limit to how David can use that.
Butter and sour cream, freshly ground black pepper. Oofda.
Oh, it is.
The finger. Oofda.
Oh, okay. I'm still learning Minnesotan.
So is Dave.
I think, what year did you move here?
2011.
Oh, wow.
2013.
2013? You were born
Yeah,
back.
born and raised here.
Hometown boy.
Yep.
So he's a real Minnesotan. Oofda.
Whom I've
Oofda.
never heard say
Yeah.
oofda until now.
That's a good point. Not a
true.
Minnesota thing. Stop bringing your oofdas to Minnesota.
I think I beat you by a couple months, don't I?
Yeah. I came here in May.
April.
Yeah.
End of April. Started May 1st.
Well,
Are we?
let's go ahead and we will kill the live feed for just a moment,
Be patient with us.
and then we will regroup and be back live here in a moment to share our scores and talk about what we're tasting and all of that.
Cool.
All right.
See ya.
Okay, we're back. We have each counted our own score. We've had a little bit of a conversation here around the scores, and we're going to now share our scores. Do you have everybody have your scores tabulated?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences. There is going to be some positive, and there is going to be some negative, and there may be some disagreement. And that's what this is all about, because at the end of the day, there are things like preferences that we can't get over. And one of the realities of being a coffee roaster is that you're not just a green coffee evaluator, but you are trying to get the best out of that roast in a way that best suits your consumer. So some of the folks on the panel may be somebody that would be a consumer for one type of coffee, and others may be a consumer for a different type of coffee. So we have a little bit of diversity in the way that we appreciate different coffees. So
Joe.
you'll see that diversity play out.
Joe just gave me some cover.
All of us some cover. Okay, so we're going to start with Tony, and then Dave, and then Micah, and then I will keep track of these and give my score as well. And we'll give a final score for each one as I average these up. And the first coffee is what we're calling right now 429.
I give cup 429 84.5.
84.0.
84.0.
And I am at an 86.5. Our score for that is 84.75. Some flavor notes, gentlemen. Tony, we'll go in order, the same order.
Yeah, hot, I was getting really like juicy watermelon. Cooling, the flavor turned a little, kind of getting a little bit of carrot, like a sweet, really sweet carrot. Aftertaste got a little bit harsh on me. That's kind of, aftertaste wasn't my favorite on a lot of these coffees, so those are kind of the standout characteristics to me. Pretty good sweetness body, was all pretty well balanced.
For me, it was a little bit savory. The aftertaste was good when it was hot, and then it fell off for me. Just a little bit thin on the body, 84.0.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I was getting this really kind of like nice, like apple pie sort of flavor. A little bit of, kind of spice, a little kind of green apple, a little cocoa. It was tending toward kind of the sour side on the acidity, really kind of a really bright kind of like lemon pith. Yeah, a little bit drying as well, so.
Yeah, I had really nice brown sugar, almond, cocoa, lemon. It kind of got thicker later on in the cupping, but at first it was pretty thin. But as it opened up a little bit, the acidity sharpened quite a bit, which led to a little more vegetal characteristic coming out of it, some of that savory quality. It tasted like maybe a touch more development on this coffee. Open it up a little bit more, could have brought that score up a bit. And don't be offended by an 84.75. This is not green coffee evaluation. We're evaluating these a little bit differently. So that's not to say that you didn't roast this well. It's just to say that's where we are calibrated to right now. Okay, next coffee.
I gave it an 85.25.
83.0.
85.0.
And I was at an 86. Our average score on this coffee is 84.81. And I will stop after that. Goes on to the 2.5, but we're going to drop that.
What number was that?
And that is number, the one that we are evaluating now is number 314. That is the St. Louis area code for those that are listening. Go Cards.
This coffee had me really excited on the wet aroma. It was really sweet, floral, some sweet tomato with that really sweet vine ripened cherry tomato. And aftertaste harshened for me. The acidity kind of intensified each time it cooled. I got kind of tomato soup. Had this interesting interplay throughout it though of being really creamy, which I thought was interesting with the acidity. And hot, there was this like vanilla, creamy, custardy sweetness. But as it continued to cool, the acidity opened up more and more and turned a little too much of the tomato soup for me. All that said, I still give it an 85.25.
Very good. Like Tony, the dry fragrance and the aroma caught my attention, and I had high expectations. There was a hook in this coffee for me in the flavor. It went up into the back of my retronasal on the top of my mouth there, and it was so distracting for me. So I was the one that scored it the lowest, 83, and it's an extremely light roast for me, and seemed underdeveloped.
Yeah, and I would have a really similar story, kind of on the fragrance and the aroma. You know, there was a lot of sweetness, a lot of kind of floral character, and then you know, right up there it was pretty complex coffee, a lot of like green apple, and there's also a pretty distinct kind of vegetal quality, and the aftertaste I thought was fairly thin as well, but. Yeah, it had some really good qualities as well.
What score did you give that coffee?
85.
85.
Yeah, definitely spicy on the aroma, spicy throughout, mango, peach, honey, but it had this strong pepper flavor from start to finish. Not a positive pepper flavor, but more like a green pepper, almost like jalapeno in a not so great way. It reminded me of a jalapeno mango jelly. It had that jelly-like characteristic of some really nice sweetness, thick body, but that pepper note just, and I think that's what Dave is referring to as that hook. It is categorically showing that the coffee didn't fully get roasted all of the way, at least to the point where you can get past that vegetal characteristic and into some more interesting and dynamic characteristic that coffee had locked up in it still. Okay, 573.
I gave cup 573 an 86.
Well, I need to be writing these down. Sorry, guys. 86, Dave?
84 and a half.
And I had an 86.
And I had 88.5.
As far as my notes got on it, this had the highest score in dry fragrance for me. The wet aroma was a little bit less. That said, coffees that are really, really big in the aroma kind of worry me because they're putting that much off in the aroma, then I'm worried about losing the cup. So I was kind of excited that it had a really high fragrance, a little bit lower wet aroma, because those flavors carried through into the cup. Really dynamic. Up front, I was getting first pass hot flavor, was that juicy watermelon. Body smooth, like really light syrup. As it cooled, the grassy note came forward, implying a little bit of underdevelopment. So it didn't cool as high as I scored it up front. All that, it still had an 86 for me. I really enjoyed this coffee.
Tony, can you back up and talk and say again what you were discussing about dry fragrance, wet aroma, and expectations?
I mean, for dry fragrance, wet aroma, you know, those aromatic experiences you have, we evaluate them. I don't put a ton of into a coffee on them because the customer doesn't experience that.
I understand.
They will get an aromatic, but they'll never get that dry fragrance. I don't grind coffee and shove it in the customer's nose. They'll get it at home. But I've seen many coffees that as soon as you grind them, it's this explosion of aromatics. Then you go to the cup and it's a little bit flat. Well, if it's an aromatic that you can taste, it's in the atmosphere. And you can sometimes have a coffee that its aromatics are so volatile and delicate that it flattens in the cup by the time you get to water. But if there's nothing in the cup, there may not be anything. If there's nothing in the fragrance aroma, there may be nothing in the cup. So it's not a hard, fast rule, but yeah.
Very good. On this coffee, there was a tea in the flavor, and it wasn't a strong tannin. It was like a very inviting tea. Probably a strong point of this coffee for me. Good body, just like Tony remarked, with
You're
an,
going to just say just like Tony.
well, that could be too.
Sorry.
The aprons are covering it up.
So I gave the coffee an 84.5.
Yeah. Yeah, this coffee I gave an 86. There was, a lot of kind of like milk chocolate flavor I was getting. This was a pretty dynamic cup. Floral, I was getting that kind of appley flavor as well. Really impressed by the acidity on this coffee. Had this really nice kind of like lime, maybe like key lime sort of punch. The body a little on the thinner side. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this cup.
Yeah, it has my highest acidity score throughout.
This one, just for the record, the average was 86.25. My notes on this, again, we had a really nice spicy aroma in the cup. Maple sugar, lemon, very sweet yet clean. Sometimes a sweet coffee is a little bit muddled, but this was very sweet and clean, vibrant, hibiscus. The sweetness just continued to build. This is a coffee that, when roasted, somebody really opened up the flavor while still focusing on sweetness. And I very much appreciated that. This is my high score personally.
What'd you get that?
88.5.
Yeah, it's also my highest sweetness and highest overall as well.
And lot number 847 is our next cup.
I give it an 83.75. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
85.0.
83.75 plus 85. Yes, sir.
Sorry, we're on 847, right?
847, that's
Yes,
correct.
that had 87.5.
Well, Michael liked it.
For a grand total of 85.56. And notes, Tony.
This one I found to be a little nutty and grassy in the aftertaste. Don't have a lot of notes in this coffee. I did find that a lot of my scores are going up as we come through it, so it's definitely a cup that improved.
Dry fragrance and the aroma were fleeting on this for me. And I don't know what that correlates to. I think it had one of the best bodies, but other than that, no additional remarks.
Even better than Tony's?
Even better than Tony's. I'm into body today, obviously.
Yes, Micah.
Yeah, I mean, there was up front, I noticed a kind of a nice like chocolate covered orange sort of sweetness. It did kind of fade as it went on and cooled a little bit, but also I thought this coffee had a really nice acidity. Very like sweet tomato, not tomato in a bad way, but like a cherry tomato sort of sweetness. Sort of acidity, and cherry tomato sort of sweetness. Yeah, so I also scored, this was the highest of the Cuppers score as well. So
I also clearly got the sweet tomato, blackberry, almond for that nuttiness. There was some sugar. For me, the finish was papery and metallic, so there were some negative things that just didn't quite get roasted out of it, or maybe got roasted into it. That finish is what kind of killed it for me and didn't get it up to that next level of score. Okay, next coffee is 539.
83.5.
85.0.
had an 86.25.
And I'm at an 84.5.
This is a coffee that improved for me greatly. On the first pass, I found the flavor to be inconsistent and questioned whether there was a Quaker in the cup, in cup 2. As it cooled the first time, I found kind of riching up into this nice pumpkin flavor, like just that really cooked down squash, gourd kind of stuff that was really nice. And I found that it cooling it improved even more on the coolest pass. Some of those inconsistencies and stuff kind of went away a little bit. So this is one that was kind of torn on both ways. I definitely wanted to improve it for it and score it for improving, but I didn't want to ignore that I had some concerns up front. So my end score was an 83.5.
Yeah, and this one, really wonderful, round, sweet, wet aroma. Got chocolates, like Tony said, not on the first round, but on the second round. The body was very soft, but like on the third pass, it had begun to lose that softness. 85.0.
Yeah, I had 86.25. Again, there was this really, that nice kind of like apple pie spice, kind of buttery. The body I thought was really nice, very present. The aftertaste was a little dry. It was also kind of a smoky, ashy sort of flavor as well. It was kind of present throughout. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes. Oh, sorry. So the average score on this one is 84.81. And I agree with my cohorts. This one tasted like somebody took it maybe a little too fast. It was a little scorchy. There was a little bit of a smoke, while at the same time having some under roast characteristics, some mealiness, corn, vegetal characteristics like that squash that we were talking about, but also some positive nuttiness, some orange, a lot of sugar. So in altogether 84.5. It was kind of a roller coaster coffee. Next up we have 386. Tony.
83.25.
I'll be the outlier. 87.0.
I had 86.0.
And I am at 84.5. For a grand total of 85.19.
This coffee was exciting for me, but incomplete. Dry fragrance had this really sweet chocolate flavor, golden raisin, winey, in a white wine kind of way, dry finish. Acidity as it cooled was kind of this like grapefruit candy, but overall it kind of had this really underdeveloped green kind of thing. Like this things that there were elements in there that were good and were showing some beginnings of sugar development, but didn't break into that range of richness, sweetness, body. It was a fun coffee, but it wasn't like it wasn't through that wall of sugars developing and reactions happening to give it that depth.
Well, unlike Tony, I stopped at the fun part. This was my favorite coffee, and we should talk at some point about our biases relative to roast level. A lot of light coffees up here. This is the only coffee to me that brought the roast development in, and we're really evaluating these in context of themselves and in comparison one to another. This was a soft body, complete for me. On the third pass, it began to introduce like a gum flavor, like a chewing gum flavor, that may or may not relate to underdevelopment.
I was giving that same stevia kind of sweetness as well. That stood out to me.
Yeah, so for me, like the fragrance and the aroma I thought were really complex, like lots of fruits like peach, mango. Acidity was popping. The body was a little on the thin side, and I found the aftertaste to be pretty drying, which really kind of detracted from some of that complexity and some of that sweetness as well. Yeah, so I give it an 86 overall.
Yeah, tart lime, salt and almond. It had this really bright snappiness to it, but then it also had this deeper vegetal smokiness to it, which again, to me, points that this may have gone a little too fast, because part of it is roasty, and part of it is underdeveloped, part of it is green, part of it is dark brown. So for
Fair
me,
enough.
I feel like this was a little scorchy, smoky, and salty. So I was at an 84.5, but there was a lot of positive things going on. That tart lime kind of opened up to a lime candy, and the almond was sweetened up a little bit, more like an orgeat a little later in the cup. But that bitter finish, that scorchy finish, just drove me to a lower score. All right. Number 674, our final cup of the day. And Tony, are you ready?
Yes. 84.5.
86.0.
I get 87.5.
And I am at 87. For a grand total of 86.25.
So this coffee, for me, was one that I had concerns about up front. I thought it was flat, hay-like. I thought it was a little creamy, raisin. The flavor was really great, but there was some like vegetal stuff in the aftertaste that were holding me down. But I gave it some love in the cupper score because I really enjoyed this coffee. But it's one that the way I evaluated each individual section was not my overall favorite, but as completed whole, I thought it was really balanced and really enjoyable.
I had that same tension with this coffee. It was like, this is almost my favorite, but, and I go back to my scores, and I couldn't noogie them up anymore to get the coffee any higher. Florals on it were wonderful for me. Just an overall good job on that roast.
Yeah, I mean, again, this coffee I thought was really complex. To get this kind of like almond sort of nuttiness, like almost almond syrup. Baker's chocolate had this really kind of juicy quality up front, peach, mango. Really nice body, I thought. The aftertaste was on the drier side, and the body, while fairly round, was sort of thin, if that makes sense. Yeah, this was the second highest I gave it for the cupper score, so I was really impressed with that coffee.
Yeah, this one was one of those coffees that didn't really have one particular thing that jumped out about it, but everything about it was pretty consistent. This is a cup that I would call balanced. Balanced is actually one of my notes, and balanced is kind of where we were on our scores for the most part. A very balanced cup, sweet yet vibrant, yet consistent body, orange, lemongrass, so the aromatics were really nice and open. It did kind of fade a little bit, but nothing that would hold back its score. I'm going to get your scores one more time on 573. Gentlemen, can you please read those off?
86.
84.5.
86.
Yes, we have a completely even tie for our final top score.
Which way? Saying lowest?
For the highest score.
No, for the highest.
the
And
highest.
we'll have to deal with that. We'll figure that out.
They get to actually fight for.
They get to fight?
There you go.
Arm wrestle. They
Okay.
can pay for their own way here into Minneapolis and arm wrestle.
So I have a tiebreaker idea.
Phase 3.
Phase 3, what I would offer to the group is that we quickly have somebody that is a non-biased party only set up 1 cup of each coffee and blind it, and then we evaluate those separate, like right in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And then we literally say, this is my favorite, and see if we have a tie on that.
Can we just grab someone from Cafe Imports quick?
Yes,
We
certainly.
Just go point at someone?
Correct. So keep the camera rolling
Yeah.
so that we keep this process accountable. And we will have somebody from Cafe Imports that is random come in and set up 1 cup of each coffee. And I hope that that is a viable solution to our completely perfect tie at 86.25 with no remainder.
Nice job.
All right?
Thanks,
Give me
Joe.
1 moment.
Should we grind and pour while we're waiting?
Well, we need to blind the two.
We're gonna do that. Really blind.
So
Is
how
it-
about we leave the room so that we
There's
can
no-
see how the blinding is being
Right.
done.
So I just grabbed Omar. He has no idea what he's in for, but he said that he's completely down.
Omar, the man.
This is Omar
Senor
Herrera.
Bodega, huh?
Are we live?
Oh, yeah.
So this is what we need to do. We have a completely even tie on 2 coffees.
Okay.
So I need these 2 coffees re-blinded,
You
so we
sure?
don't know which one is which,
Okay.
and 1 cup of each
yeah.
one prepared for cupping.
You sure you want number 6, Joe?
Oh no, sorry. Let me get my score sheet here.
I believe it's number 7.
It is number 7. Thank you very much, Dave.
And we still live? What should we be
We
doing?
are still live, so those of us that are on the judging panel are going to step out and just make sure that you can just set out the cups of those side by side, cup 1, cup 2, and then you can put those 2 back as long as you know which one associates. You can write the number on the back of the card. And we will be back.
Yeah.
We'll turn off our microphones and we will be back.
Card or green or anything as a control card or
Joe, you think quicker than I do.
What's up?
You think quicker than I do.
No. 3 and 7. Yep. So our judges have left the room. I found a microphone. Hello, I'm Nick. I run this whole thing from behind the camera. If you think I'm doing a great job, applaud. I more meant you at home, but thank you, studio audience. Thank you. It feeds the ego. If anybody has any questions, any suggestions for future topics, contests, competitions, or any sort of fun activity, please email us. Nick at Mill City Roasters is my email. Dave at Mill City Roasters is Mr. Dave Borton. And heck, Serena at millcityroasters.com if you have any questions about cupping. She's a cupper. Beyond that, thank you for watching. We'll be right back. Appreciate it.
evaluate the dry.
We're coming, we're coming.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming back to you live. We are going to evaluate the dry, keep everything silent. We're not going to score this time. We're just simply going to have the one that we think is the best in our mind. And in the event that this comes down to another split decision where two of us think that one is the best and the other two think that the other is the best, we have collectively decided that those top two will go into a third round, and we will send you another coffee and do another full evaluation on those two coffees.
We found that the most fair way to do it in terms of how do you go about it. Let's not do something that's arbitrary or casual. So we'll go into round 3 if we need to.
That's right. So we'll quickly evaluate these dry grounds and then get water on them, and we'll probably taste these a little bit hotter in order to expedite our decisions.
If you guys need to take off, just send me an email tonight if you'd like to cup those Ethiopians with me tomorrow. About 1:30, does that work?
Yeah, I just have something,
Perfect.
and I don't know if I have your home address.
1118 Idaho Avenue West, right at the north end of Como, at Lexington and Larpenteur.
Yeah, Idaho's,
That's 2 blocks south of Larpenteur,
right.
1 block west of Lexington.
This is a
Cool, good.
yeah.
Did you
We'll do
enjoy
a simple
it?
break. Actually, Omar, I'll have you break these. We won't evaluate the break
Operation.
since
Yeah,
only 2 of us
yeah.
would be able to. Only 1 per cup.
Well, of course
so
it is. You
We're all evaluating the same way. This is a shout out to my wife who is watching. Her words on her text to me is, "This is cracking me up. You have such a weird job." So very true.
Religiously now, she's like, I don't understand it, but I love seeing you occasionally. I'm like, oh, thanks, Grandma.
It's the eye candy.
That's right.
Are we filling?
Are we filling?
Yeah, are we talking about some things?
Oh, yes. We can certainly talk about some things. We had a couple of things that we wanted to discuss in the round table, Dave. With the stress of the moment, my mind is blank. Can you please remind me?
Well, even before we get there, let's talk about how relatively light these coffees are.
Sure.
3 of you gentlemen, you're all gentlemen, are from California. In my experience, they roast very light on the West Coast compared to the way we do here. Micah, as I look at these beans, and I've had bootstrap coffee, I don't recall seeing you roast this light. What do your customers ask for here?
Yeah, I mean, it really kind of depends on the coffee that we're roasting. I mean, we tend toward kind of lighter to medium on the overall spectrum. We have a couple of coffees that we push pretty far, not quite to second crack, but getting close. But yeah, so I guess a range.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, our overall goal is to produce a really kind of sweet and balanced cup. So those are the kind of the 2 qualities we're looking for when we're approaching any coffee.
Tony?
Yeah, I'm in a very similar position to Micah. I mean, I drink Micah's coffee when it's available, when I'm not working at my own place.
So do I.
Before how, how hard it is when we're working in our own companies to try each other's coffees. But I think one of the things that's standing out a little more to me on some of the coffees, especially across the board, is grooming. There's some noticeable Quaker presence in a lot of these a lot of the roasted samples. And do yourself a favor sometime and make a cupping bowl of just Quakers, and then you will be a really good groomer. Because, or stock one sample with a Quaker, put one Quaker bean in a measured sample, and like something that's evidently Quaker. And
How heavily did you groom your coffee going into the SCAA Roaster of the Year competition?
I groomed my first round more heavily than my second. Part of that's the nature of the coffee that I was working with. But my final round coffee was production roast.
Okay.
I try not to treat a competition coffee significantly different than our production coffees. I may just take another quick look at it, but I want to compete with coffees that are our coffees. I want our coffees that if we're winning an award for, a customer should be able to get it. And if I'm getting feedback from judges who are some of the best coffee tasting professionals in the industry, I want their real feedback too.
Sure.
If I treat that coffee very differently, then what good is their feedback because it doesn't apply to what I'm doing daily.
Very good. And then Joe,
Yes, sir.
you used to roast
I did.
commercially, and I understand markets are regional. Everybody's market out there is going to differ, but do you see coffees getting lighter and lighter? And if you do, how long do you think that approach to coffee will last?
I certainly see the trend of the, what I would call maybe trendy hip roaster community, swinging back a little bit from super light roasts. Many of the roasts here are much lighter than you would typically find in a lot of cafes today. A lot of roasters are going for more sweetness than they have over the past 5 to 10 years. There was a big swing toward acidity there for a time when we were starting to find acidity for the first time in coffees and find a lot of diversity. And then now that's coming back to more full development and a little bit more delicate approach to roasting than just like a harsh, bright. It's basically, you had your really dark roast for a long time, and so that pendulum swang really strongly to a light, bright roast, and now it's coming back a little.
Now it's coming back a little bit. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
But there's diversity, and there are certainly a lot of trends that are in pockets. I would personally say that I think that there needs to be a lot more exploration in water quality. We find that, like for instance, we have a lab in Berlin, we have a lab in Melbourne, we have a lab here, we have a lab in San Jose, and when you're tasting the exact same coffee at the exact same roast, in one place it will taste very bright, in another place it will taste very dull. Whenever we're cupping coffees in Melbourne, everything tastes pretty dull because they have basically distilled water that they're brewing coffee with.
We're spoiled, I think, here in the Twin Cities. Really good water.
Yes, absolutely. We do have the best water of all of the
Of the four places
four
that
places,
you mentioned.
for sure.
I was invited into that tasting when you guys replicated the office waters, and I came in thinking, okay, they're all at the appropriate TDS. Like, how much can we really go into this? And came away pretty shocked at the amount of influence. Just like you may be at the right parts per million, but then the makeup of those particulate that's building that is pretty impressive. How much of an influence it has. Even just tasting neutral, tasting just the waters themselves built to replicate the two. And one was very like lemony, and one tasted like Slate.
Yeah, if you have a lot of calcium in your water, for instance, you'll take the acidity in your coffee and just kill it. And a lot of times that's what you see in places like Europe, where there's a lot of calcium in the water, and so they have to roast the coffee a lot lighter in order to get the coffee to be bright when they finally brew it with the water that has a lot of calcium in it. So roasting to the water that you're brewing with is a natural thing that happens when you're cupping and evaluating and changing your roast according to how you're brewing. And so that could very well be the case with some of the coffees that are coming from a place like California. When we're evaluating them, if they have a really sharp acidity, that to me says there's probably some kind of chemical situation with the water that they may have roasted that coffee to the water that they are using to brew. So that's why competition is a really tough thing. We try to have the most neutral evaluation when it comes to how we build our water recipe as possible. So here in Minnesota, we try to kind of be between the other 3 offices that we have so we can get a fair evaluation and really be the standard bearer for our whole company. But we're working on water systems now that will have the exact same water in all 4 offices. So, and have the ability to change the water in those offices to be like the water in the places that we're selling coffee to, which is important, right?
That's itself brings up a big challenge for, you know, how do you go about shaping your water when you are planning to sell that coffee? Because I can shape my water as precisely as I want inside my lab, but then my customer's going to take it home. And my customer's going to brew on tap water. They're probably not going to even filter it. They're going to take it straight from the tap and brew with it. So finding that balance of your control and having the ideal, but also having the practical. Or my situation is, at Spy House, we ship coffee to cafes all over the country and customers all over the country. And I have no idea what their systems are like in each one. And if I'm on a guest feature somewhere for a month, they're not going to change water to feature my coffee as a guest roaster against their core roaster for a month. And I do see that we have kind of lumped successes in regions, and part of that is, you know, word of mouth and travel, but also I'm sure part of that is our coffees shine better in some places than others.
Yep.
Shall we?
All right. So the way that I'm going to direct you gentlemen to do this is we'll each take 1 sip of each coffee. We're not going to spit this evaluation. We're going to give it the full evaluation as if we're drinking the coffee. And we'll go through and taste each coffee 3 times. I want you to soundly in your head actually I'll have you write down on a piece of paper which one is which. We're going to call this one number 1, and we'll call this one number 2, and we will go from there. Sound good? You can write your number on the back of this. Don't write your number until you taste it all 3 times.
We're calling it 1 and 2, right? Not A and B.
That's right.
Okay, very sure.
It's A1 and 2.
We do better with numbers than with the alphabet, you know?
I just wanted.
I like F the most. All right, this is the start of a new contest. Dave had something.
Yes, I did. And
With the microphone.
I self-filtered.
There it is. I have a microphone all the time.
A lot of pressure.
It doesn't help right when I'm about to start. No.
Sorry. when you get your cards, Nick, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to have everybody hand you the cards.
Oh, wow.
And then you can just say which number and call out. Does anybody need another evaluation? Is everybody confident on which one you think you prefer as a consumer of this coffee and as a professional coffee taster?
And just so it's clear, 1 and 2.
That is correct.
All right.
Who's got their cards?
1 and 2. Micah's writing his number now. Stop rushing us, Nick.
Mike wrote 1.5.
And tiebreaker.
Are we ready?
We are ready.
All right. First vote is for number 1. Second vote, number 1. Third vote, number 1. Last vote, number 2.
We have a
We have a
winner. Number 1 is the winner, but before we do that, let's quickly go from lowest score to the highest 2, announce what those are, and then we'll announce who is the winner.
You got it.
Okay, so for the low score, which actually these scores were all very tight overall. The lowest score being 84.75, which was cup number 429. Please reveal that company.
Ellen Folks, North Carolina Forester.
And for the next score, lot number 314, which was actually an 84.8125 with the remainder.
Harrison Boyd and Ellen Folks are honorable mentions.
And then lot number 539 is the next score up, and that one is
Lyle Erickson. And Nick, is that the apron from Bird and Bell?
5th place, the Bird Bell custom made apron.
Congratulations, Lyle.
the next score is 85.19 of 386.
Paul Trum.
Paul Trum.
Nick, what does Paul win? Number 4.
Paul has a kit, and he will travel with the new Paladin cupping kit.
Paladin, and Paul, if you don't know why it's called the Paladin traveling kit, let me know.
And our next score up is lot number 847, which is also our third place.
Augie's.
Augie's. Austinamento, yeah. Congratulations on that. That's a great prize. What does he get, Nick?
He is getting a Baratza grinder from our generous co-sponsor, Baratza.
As a killer prize. Okay, and then we have our second and first place contestants, which are Austin Tsai
And Stoke Coffee.
and Stoke Coffee right here in Minnesota.
That's right, Cody Larson.
All right, so let's see who has won.
Dun 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 dun.
Little drum roll, Nick.
Coffee number 2 is 573. Stoke Coffee. And coffee number 1 is 674. Austin Tsai.
Congratulations, Austin.
Congratulations, Austin.
Very good, Austin. You won a 500 gram North Roaster. Compliments of North Roaster in Shenzhen, China. The line of roasters, one of the lines that we distribute at Mill City Roasters.
That is an incredible prize. Thank you all so very much for competing. And we will hopefully see you next year on the competition circuit and get to taste your coffees again. Until then, please tune in to our monthly videos for some education and some focus on some roastings and some schools and what else.
Tips from the top.
Tips from the top?
Thanks for looking in, and thanks for so much so many people that contributed to a successful event.
And thank you, Tony and Micah, for being here and volunteering your time.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely.